She walks into the room and the air shifts. Not because she demands attention, but because she commands it without a word. Her presence is a quiet storm, a force that doesn't need to prove itself. She acts soft not out of weakness, but because true power doesn't need to shout. In a world obsessed with noise and bravado, she embodies the strength of stillness. Her softness is not submission. It's a conscious choice, a strategic grace. She knows that the most formidable power lies in restraint, in the ability to hold back when provoked, to remain composed when chaos ensues. She has mastered the art of presence. Her energy speaks volumes, conveying confidence and authority without uttering a single syllable. She doesn't need to dominate the conversation. Her silence is eloquent, her gaze penetrating. She listens more than she speaks, understanding that knowledge is gained through observation, not proclamation. Her power is rooted in self-awareness. She has delved into the depths of her psyche, confronted her shadows, and emerged whole. She doesn't seek validation from others because she has validated herself. Her worth is not contingent on external approval. It's intrinsic, unwavering. She moves through life with intentionality. Every action is deliberate, every decision aligned with her values. She doesn't react impulsively. She responds thoughtfully. Her discipline is not rigid but fluid, adapting to circumstances without compromising her integrity. In relationships, she doesn't chase, she attracts. She understands that genuine connection cannot be forced, it must flow naturally. She doesn't cling to those who don't appreciate her. She releases them with grace, knowing that her peace is more valuable than any fleeting companionship. She embraces solitude, not as loneliness, but as a sacred space for growth and reflection. In solitude, she reconnects with her inner self, recharges her energy, and gains clarity. She doesn't fear being alone because she enjoys her own company. Her resilience is quiet but unbreakable. She has faced adversity, endured pain, and yet she remains unshaken. Her scars are not signs of weakness but badges of honor, reminders of battles fought and won. She doesn't wear her struggles as a burden but as a testament to her strength. She leads by example, not by coercion. Her influence is subtle yet profound, inspiring others to rise to their potential. She doesn't seek followers, she cultivates leaders. Her legacy is not built on control, but on empowerment. In a society that equates loudness with strength, she redefines power. Her softness is her superpower, her calmness her weapon. She doesn't need to prove herself because she knows herself. And in that knowing, she finds freedom. She acts soft because she is powerful beyond measure. And true power, the kind that transforms lives and shapes destinies, doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. She simply is, and that is enough to change the temperature of any room she enters. Because she doesn't carry power like a sword, she radiates it. Not through domination, but through depth. Not by posturing, but by presence. Hers is the kind of presence that disarms the ego and awakens the soul. It doesn't confront you, it reveals you. And that revelation, it terrifies people who've built their identities on control, because she doesn't play their game. She doesn't respond to provocation. She doesn't take the bait of shallow theatrics. She meets chaos with a gaze so calm, so unbothered it becomes a mirror that reflects back every insecurity, every unhealed wound, every unresolved shadow, not through judgment, but through stillness. Because she has already met her own, she's wrestled her own darkness. She stared into her inner abyss, and instead of running, she stayed. She didn't beg for light, she became it. That's why nothing shakes her now. Not silence, not betrayal, not the empty noise of men who think volume equals virtue. She knows. Real power doesn't rush. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't announce its arrival. It doesn't demand validation to feel real. Real power listens. It waits. It chooses not from scarcity, but from sovereignty. And when she chooses, it is never because she needs you. It is because she sees you and chooses you anyway. But if you fail to recognize the value of that choice, if you mistake her softness for submission, if you test her boundaries thinking they were made to be bent, she will not explode. She will exit silently, fully, with no part of herself left behind, because she no longer splits herself in two just to fit inside someone else's limited understanding of love. She has outgrown the performance. She has outgrown the apology. She has outgrown the game. Now she watches from within, from above, from the center of her own universe, where she is no longer a satellite orbiting someone else's gravity. She is the sun, and the warmth she offers is no longer available to those who come only to take. It is reserved for the aligned, the aware, the awake, because she acts soft. Yes, but her softness is a filter. It separates the men who recognize sacred energy from the boys who only know how to consume it. And those boys, the ones who mistake gentleness for permission, who interpret grace as weakness, they never see it coming. Because the storm she carries is not loud. It doesn't arrive in fury. It arrives in decision. She decides that silence is more powerful than explanation. That distance speaks louder than confrontation. That peace is more precious than proving a point to someone who has no intention of understanding her. So she lets go, not in bitterness, but in brilliance, because her love was never meant to be a classroom for unteachable men. She's not here to mother your emotional illiteracy. She's not here to interpret your avoidance as mystery. She's not here to call chaos passion. She has grown too wise for that. Now, her softness is her strategy, not to manipulate, but to magnetize. She doesn't chase, she attracts. Not by being agreeable, but by being authentic. And authenticity has gravity. It draws in those who are ready. It repels those who are not. So if she seems quiet, don't mistake it for confusion. She's not unsure. She's not undecided. She's just observing. Observing how your words match your actions, how your energy aligns with your intentions, how your presence respects her peace. Because a woman like her, a woman who acts soft not to disarm, but because she's disarmed herself, she doesn't need to test you. Life will do that for her. And she knows the man who is meant for her will not be shaken by her stillness. He will recognize it. He will honor it. He will move in rhythm with it, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because he has done his own work. He has faced his own shadows. He has nothing to prove, only something to offer. And until that man appears, she will remain exactly as she is, untouched by noise, unmoved by ego, unshaken by loneliness. Because she understands what most still don't. There is a difference between being alone and being in alignment. And she will never trade alignment for companionship again. Because companionship without alignment is captivity in disguise. And she has already tasted that prison, the one where she had to shrink her voice to make peace, where her intuition was dismissed as overreaction, where her softness was taken as an invitation to overstep. She will not return there. Not for attention, not for love, not even for the illusion of connection. Because she knows the cost now. She knows that bending for someone else's comfort is a silent contract with your own self-abandonment. And she refuses to sign that contract ever again. So yes, she acts soft. She smiles with ease. She speaks with warmth. She touches the world with gentleness. But make no mistake, that softness is fortified. It is the result of years spent tearing down the walls others built inside her. Years spent peeling off the layers of shoulds and musts and maybes. Years spent reclaiming her voice from the hands of those who only wanted it quiet, sweet, and agreeable. Now she moves in grace, but not for your approval. Her grace is for her, the sacred balm she offers to herself. A kind of self-love that doesn't shout affirmations in the mirror, but walks away when something feels off and trusts the silence that follows. Because she no longer needs closure. She needs clarity. And clarity isn't something she asks for. It's something she becomes. She becomes so clear on who she is, what she values, and how she deserves to be treated, that anything misaligned simply falls away without effort. That's the power of a woman who acts soft but lives from soul. She is not confused. She is not waiting. She is not here to be rescued. She is the rescue for herself, for her lineage, for the quiet army of women watching her, realizing maybe they too don't have to harden to survive. Maybe softness isn't surrender. Maybe it's the truest victory, the kind of victory that doesn't require bloodshed-only boundaries. And now she holds those boundaries with elegance, with ease, with silence, because power doesn't need to raise its voice. Power simply is. And so is she. So is she, and always has been, even when she was doubted, even when she was dismissed, even when she stood alone, accused of being too sensitive, too emotional, too much, when in truth she was just too real for those who were too fragmented to hold her. She carries no bitterness. She doesn't wear resentment as armor. She doesn't need to, because the most dangerous woman is not the one who fights. It's the one who no longer needs the battle. She has transcended the battlefield, not because she couldn't win, but because she understood the war was never hers to begin with. It was always about proving something to people who never even saw her. And now, she no longer performs. She no longer auditions for love. She no longer translates her soul into a language others find comfortable. She speaks in clarity. She lives in integrity. She walks in truth. And that walk, that graceful, grounded, sovereign walk, is what confuses the world, because they were taught that softness is weakness, that femininity must scream to be taken seriously, that tenderness is submission. But she embodies a different truth, a deeper truth. She shows that softness can refuse you, that tenderness can draw a line in the sand with a whisper. That feminine energy, in its purest form, does not beg, does not bargain, does not bend, it chooses. And when she chooses herself, the world rearranges. Because now she is a standard, not a seeker. She is the gravity, not the chaser. And those who approach her will feel it instantly. The unspoken expectation to meet her where she stands, not pull her back to where they're stuck. She doesn't make announcements. She doesn't issue warnings. She doesn't explain her boundaries in lengthy paragraphs anymore. She lets your actions speak. And then she decides, in silence, with peace, with finality, because she doesn't need the world to understand her softness. She just needs the world to respect it. And if it doesn't, she walks not out of anger, but out of love. Love for herself, love for her future, love for the truth that power isn't loud. Power is presence, and she is its living proof. She is its living proof, not through declarations, but through demonstration. She doesn't argue her worth, she embodies it. She doesn't defend her standards, she lives by them. And in doing so, she disrupts every illusion the world had about what a soft woman should be. Because her softness isn't submission, it's precision. It's the deliberate decision to lead with grace when the world expects grit, to offer calm when provoked, to stay centered when surrounded by chaos. And that calm, it unnerves people, because most are only familiar with power that threatens, not power that transforms. Most people can only measure strength by how loud it is, how fast it moves, how forcefully it demands. But she is the kind of strength that doesn't need to compete, doesn't need to dominate, doesn't need to shout over others. She is the kind of strength that draws things in, the kind that compels truth from others just by standing in it herself, the kind that makes you question who you've become and whether it's enough to stand beside her. And if it's not, she will not chase you to change. She will not carry your potential. She will not babysit your evolution. She will let you go with kindness, with dignity, and with an inner knowing that what is meant for her will never ask her to become less. Because becoming less is a betrayal she's already committed once. Once was enough. Now, her life is a declaration, not one shouted, not one broadcasted, but lived quietly and unshakably every day. In the way she says no without guilt, in the way she says yes without fear, in the way she chooses solitude over shallow connection, in the way she creates space, not from scarcity, but from standard. And from that space, something beautiful is born. Freedom, not the reckless kind that runs from intimacy, but the sacred kind that calls intimacy in. The kind that says, I don't need you to complete me. I don't need you to fix me. I don't need you to fill me. I need you to see me as I see myself. And if you can't, I won't fight to be seen. Because I'm no longer afraid to be invisible to those not meant to witness my light. She knows now, softness isn't what she does. It's who she is. And being fully who she is, that is the most powerful act of all. That is the most powerful act of all because it cannot be taken, only witnessed. It cannot be touched with words, only felt in silence. It cannot be borrowed, bought, or bargained for. It is earned through war with the self, through nights of unraveling, through years of unbecoming everything she was told she had to be. And now, she is no longer in the business of performance. She doesn't need to prove she's evolved. Her energy tells the story. She doesn't need to convince you of her value, her boundaries, speak louder than her lips ever will. She doesn't need to forecast her moves, explain her distance, or translate her intuition into logic for anyone else's comfort. Because the truth is, she has nothing to prove to anyone who still measures her by old standards. Let them misunderstand her. Let them call her cold when she goes quiet. Let them call her too much when she stands tall in her truth. Let them call her changed when she stops apologizing for existing in her fullness. She's not here for their approval. She's here for alignment. Alignment with her purpose, with her peace, with her people. And if someone can't meet her there, if someone is still addicted to noise, to drama, to power, dressed in ego, then she will let them go with a blessing, with love, with silence, because she no longer fights to be chosen by people who fear what she represents. And what she represents is this: that power can be soft, that femininity can be fierce, that wisdom can whisper and still shake the world. She acts soft because her power is secure. It doesn't tremble in uncertainty. It doesn't overcompensate. It doesn't grasp. It rests. It rests in the knowing that everything meant for her is already on its way because she's finally moved out of the way. She's cleared the clutter of approval seeking. She's torn down the altar she built to external validation. And now she sits on the throne she carved from the ruins of her old self, not as a queen who rules others, but as a woman who governs herself. And in that kingdom of inner stillness, she's both sovereign and sanctuary for herself and for anyone wise enough to meet her without trying to conquer her. She does not need to conquer because she no longer seeks victory over anyone but the past version of herself. And that battle she has already won, not through war, through wisdom. She won by choosing silence over shouting, presence over performance, grace over grasping, And that is what most will never understand, that her softness is not her weakness, it is her weapon. But not a weapon forged in bitterness or rage. A weapon crafted in the quiet hours when she sat with her wounds instead of projecting them. When she stitched herself back together without asking for applause. When she turned down the volume of the world just to hear the whisper of her own soul again. That whisper, it grew. It became a voice, a knowing, a center of gravity so real, so unshakable, that now the storms outside don't reach her. Not because they disappeared, but because she did. She disappeared from the battlefield of people-pleasing. She vanished from the arena of approval. She stepped away from the circus of proving and performing and pleasing. And in that space, in that sacred withdrawal, she emerged. Softer, stronger, more dangerous than ever. Because now, she doesn't react, she remembers. She remembers who she was before the world told her who to be. Before they praised her for shrinking, for being nice, for being easy to love so long as she stayed small. And now, she is not small. She is precise. Every word, every breath, every decision is intentional. She no longer entertains what drains her. She no longer explains what her soul has already outgrown. She no longer fears being misunderstood because she finally understands herself. And that kind of understanding, it rewires everything. It shifts the foundation she walks on. It filters the people she allows in. It transforms her softness from a defense into a declaration. I am not here to be consumed. I am here to be met. And if you can't meet her with presence, with purpose, with power, you will feel the full weight of her absence. Not as punishment, but as prophecy. Because she's not waiting anymore. She's not hoping anymore. She's not bending anymore. She's building in silence, in softness, in strength. So now, she sits not on a pedestal, not on a throne, but on the grounded truth of who she has become. No fanfare, no finale, just presence. Because the most powerful transformations are not loud. They don't scream through the streets. They whisper through your posture. They ripple through your choices. They resonate through your absence from places you've outgrown. And she has outgrown almost everything. Everything that made her explain herself. Everything that made her feel too much, too loud, too soft. Everything that taught her her power had to be earned. Now she knows the truth. She is the power. The softness was never submission, it was strategy. The silence was never confusion, it was clarity. The withdrawal was never weakness, it was rebirth. And now, she walks with nothing to prove. No agenda, no armor, no need to be chosen by the blind. Because the one who sees her won't need to be convinced. He will recognize her not by her beauty, but by her stillness. Not by her softness, but by the strength it takes to hold that softness in a world that keeps trying to harden you. And if he never comes, she will not collapse. She will not compromise. She will continue as the woman who learned that the most sacred kind of power is the kind that needs nothing outside of itself to be whole. She acts soft because her power no longer needs to prove anything. It simply is.